Good evening again, everybody. How we doing out
Hi.
there? As usual, let's give this a few minutes before we get started. A little ASMR action for the folks at home.
Yeah, I had one going already. Looking for a highlighter.
Oh yeah, so Matt came prepared tonight with some presentation materials. Something. I don't know. So, screw it. I couldn't think of a extra prop tonight, so we'll just go with the can of what I'm drinking. Hot Bullet Magnum Edition.
I thought it said Hop Bumble for a second. I was like, I'm interested.
That'd be good too, I guess.
like a honey imperial IPA or something.
Oh yeah, like Hop Slam.
Yeah. Or is mead aged in a barrel at any point?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm sure some is. I don't know what the traditional method is, but
Hop Bumble could be like a hoppy mead.
Ooh. I think we need to make that happen.
Yep. Yeah.
We need to make that.
Nobody steal that.
That's all right. No one's on yet. So
good.
Hopefully I'm sounding a little better this week because I'm using an actual microphone because I realized I could have been doing that the whole time. But yeah. Oh, well. Now this feels like a real show.
Well, because we aren't doing things well.
All right. So looks like we're up and going. Just going to share that to my page. All right. Well, you ready to officially kick us off for the evening?
Hi. Welcome to the humanity where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I'm Matt.
And I'm Tommy. And tonight we figured we'd at least start. If you may notice, we have our topics every week. That's like kind of what we start with, but usually find our way onto other things as well. But at least for tonight, we're starting with just talking about now that we've left religion behind and how that was such a big foundational thing for really our entire lives, like how we viewed reality, ourselves, relationships, everything. So now that we don't have that foundation anymore, where do we go from here? How do we formulate new life philosophies, outlooks, and such? But first, current events. I mean, I need to find a snappier way to title that or transition to this. We need see. So we're getting there, folks.
Something maybe history nerdy, like a history reference, since it's current events. So we have a past events nerdy reference that's also ironic and sarcastic, but or it's nerdy that it's very nerdy that we would come up with this and then made fun of it, because just coming up with a really random reference and then spending the time to be ironic about it is make fun of the nerds.
Yeah.
It's us. Yeah.
It's our vibe, among other things. So, but anyway, so for tonight, I thought we'd talk about kind of a hot topic now, coming off the Super Bowl, but even though it's a thing that's been around for over a year now, I think there was also in last year's Super Bowl, but the He Gets Us, hashtag He Gets Us ads that people have seen, basically trying to show, Jesus being the He in the He Gets Us. All these commercials showing people living their lives, going through struggles and hardships and stuff happening, but then saying, hey, Jesus did this kind of stuff too, or he understands that sort of thing. He gets us. So, and how they kind of annoy the shit out of me.
Yeah.
So you've seen these, right? What are your initial thoughts?
Okay. I think not remembering back on it, I didn't see the one for this year yet, but I'm very familiar with the whole series.
It was pretty much more of the same. I think this one, on the Super Bowl, the big one, they had like people washing feet of different kinds of people, being like, see, Jesus would have loved these people. They had like people.
Jesus
like
would have had all these people as servants. Look at all these colored people that make amazing servants. The accidental point of the commercial.
Serving all these white women with short haircuts.
That's good.
But
but
anyway.
But yeah,
so yeah.
One of the first things the first parallel that came to mind was the Super Bowl service that our old church would always do, and it was like this big shebang. It reminded me of the fake commercials, where like it was really well done bullshit. Where it was like, all right, nobody takes this seriously, but look at the production value.
Yeah, it definitely had that same kind of vibe to it, at least to me. Yeah.
Also, it was oversimplified. I felt like it takes advantage of people having hard times. The people who are funding it, I don't know who. It was a different group who started funding it originally. Still a very conservative, like Heritage Foundation type group.
Yeah.
And then following that pattern, this year's was the new sponsorship is the Hobby Lobby family, and they are anti-worker quality stuff in general, anti-LGBTQ insurance provider, and they don't have barcodes in their stores because of the old 666 on the barcode, which isn't a thing. It does not even a 6 in a barcode. It's like, I don't know. So it just seems very disingenuous. Like, these are not the people who walk around telling people that they get them.
Yeah.
So it's hypocritical, very, and it makes me uncomfortable, and I don't like it.
Yeah, take that. But yeah, I think that what you said about it being oversimplified, because that's actually one of the criticisms I have of it, is actually very similar to, ironically, the criticism it's getting from the more like fundamentalist Christian side, which that's one of the weird things after, like, since coming out of Christianity, I've found myself siding with the fundamentalists on some things more, as when it comes to how the more like trendy or like progressive end of Christianity kind of handles things, which I never saw that coming, but here I am. But the more fundamentalist criticism of it, saying that they're just trying to make Jesus look cool, and they're not giving like the whole story, the whole picture of what all he was really about. They're just like focusing on, oh, the people will like this part of it and make him seem like friendlier and nicer, and
let's tell them part of the story.
Which, I mean, that totally is. I mean, I want to do a full episode. We could probably do at least a full episode, like just on Jesus at some point. Because, like, long story short, because a lot of atheists, even like coming out of Christianity, it seems like they'll still be like, oh, but Jesus is still cool. He still says a lot of good stuff. And it's true. There were some things that he taught in the Bible that, like, okay, that's good stuff. You know, love people, take care of people.
Happened to me. I was there.
Yeah. So, but then the more I've looked back on it, it's like, and this, like, it's gotten me in saying some stuff like this. Actually, I want to say got me in trouble, but it wasn't. It was.
What did
got some push constant some pushback from even like more like progressive in the progressive like deconstruction Christian circles. Me saying like I think Jesus is kind of overrated. In fact, there's several things he said that I
Yeah.
really are kind of shitty. Like
It's
the whole like because people want like they always say how Christianity is like it's a relationship, not a religion. And like Jesus was actually anti-religion too. Like bullshit, he was. Dude was a fucking rabbi who like went to he encouraged like temple attendance. He taught in the temple from the scrolls. He encouraged tithing, even like that. There's that story that everyone talks about that's so great. Like where this like poor widow who like gives like her last 2 pennies or whatever. And the way most people talk about Jesus, they'd be like, oh, he'd be like, no, you don't need the tithe to keep your money, lady, you're poor. But no, Jesus was like, that's awesome. Yeah, this lady who has nothing, she should, it's great that she's given what little nothing she has to the temple. Like, that's kind of gross. But
yeah, and it's hard to tell from like some of the parables because you can take it several different ways. It's hard to tell what the intended or well, not either. There aren't even like maybe even intended meanings with some of the parables. Like the point is to wrestle with it, but there's a lot of like when you're going back. If you look at Jesus, I think this might be kind of where I am in it, but I'm responding to you, not talking about me exactly. Yeah, looking at Jesus, assuming that everything about Jesus in the 4 Gospels is what happened, or that there's some contradictory things, but assuming that it all happened, yeah, there's plenty in there that makes Jesus sound like a jerk, or at least not the idealized version that is in the Super Bowl ad.
right.
Now, if only parts of it are true, then yeah, there are parts where you could like build a Jesus that's awesome out of this.
Yeah, if you're like pick and choose, kind of like progressive Christianity in general does just with the Bible, or not. It's not really just progressive Christianity, like all kinds of branches of Christianity. They'll just do that with the whole Bible. Like they'll just pick like pieces that they think are good PR or like good for image and whatever. But yeah, but as far as like, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think at that point when somebody calls themselves a progressive Christian, or that's the category that they default into, but they still call themselves a Christian, but then they're picking and choosing in a very liberal progressive way, then I would say that doesn't really sound like they're a Christian anymore. It sounds like they're a humanist or something that is Christian friendly, like Christian, or it's more of an emotional tie to some of the information than it is an adherence to the faith.
Yeah, like I guess again going back to that, how Dan Dennett talks about belief in belief. It's like it's like I got to deconstruct all this stuff, but for some reason I still need to hold on to Jesus. So that's why like I would get some pushback when I say like I don't think even Jesus was that great. But so I'd say like I would like it was in this Facebook group I was in, and I just posted this whole litany of like various phrases or teachings of Jesus and me saying like why I was not a fan, of course. But then I get all this pushback from people saying, "Oh, you're taking that verse out of context." It's like I'm talking to a bunch of evangelicals again. But things like where he says like, if anyone wants to follow me, they must hate their father and mother. Like, well, that sounds kind of shitty. So people, well, he didn't really mean hate, and like, so I get all these different explanations. Like, well, I don't care what he meant,
but he was still anti-family.
Yeah, like no matter what he meant, I am not altering my view of my family for this dude.
Yeah,
like, whatever he meant by it.
I just heard something on somebody else's video podcast recently. They're talking about where Jesus actually did preach hate, and because
was that Mind Shift?
Yep.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Pretty good.
And I actually have a verse here that I pulled up. It's one that he mentioned. It's a
Oh, good.
because like with these bringing it back to the he gets us ads, like a lot of them are talking about how Jesus was all about bringing people together and unity and all that stuff. But here and yet in let's see Matthew 12:30, like literally says like one of the things that people like gave W shit about like back in the 2000s. Like he literally says like I'm reading this direct quote from Jesus: "Whoever is not with me is against me." Like, does that sound like a unifier or someone trying to bring people together or someone who's understanding of different viewpoints or?
Yeah. And if somebody says, well, you're taking that information out of context. If that phrasing needs to be unpacked so much, then I would say that it's way more of a nuanced concept than people are trying to make it.
Yeah. And because I looked, like I pulled up the entire chapter in Matthew, was it Matthew 12? Yeah, Matthew 12. So I read before that because right before that, it's that story about him like casting out demons and like people saying, "Oh, he must be of the devil." And Jesus is like, "What do you mean? I'm casting out demons. A house in the whole like a house divided against itself cannot stand and whatnot." But that like it says like, let's see, if I drive out demons by Beelzebul, or however that's pronounced, by whom do you people drive them out? So then they will be your judges. But if it is by the Spirit of God that I drive out demons, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. It's like, and then this weird illustration he uses, or again, how can anyone enter a strong man's house and carry off his possessions unless he first ties up the strong man? Then he can plunder his house. Like that's kind of a weird illustration, Jesus.
Yeah, I feel that's one of those things where I feel like there was cultural context at the time when that was in the Greek Hebrew society.
I'm sure.
Where we were like, that was definitely more easily understood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But so back to the ad. So I mean, obviously, like on social media, I've seen a lot of people posting about them since the Super Bowl. Like one person, and I don't want to, a friend of mine on Facebook, like I don't want to like pick on him because like, I mean, I've seen this sentiment in so many other areas, like express. Oh, he's saying like, well, the people on the right don't like him, like, you know, for the reasons I've said, because it seems like Jesus is being like too like nice and friendly, or they'll say like being like too social justicey or woke or whatever. But then the people on the left don't like it because of like reasons like you said, like where the money is coming from for these ads. So it really makes him seem kind of hypocritical. And so then he kind of tied it up by saying like, oh, so like we have these things that are like making people on both sides of the aisle angry with a message of love and acceptance. That kind of sounds like Jesus. And it's like,
no, it just sounds like
no
option.
So, and I actually commented there, so like we're not being made uncomfortable by a message of love and acceptance. Like that's not like I said, I don't mean to be picking on this guy because it's such a common sentiment, but it's just the best way I can think to describe it is just tone deaf. It's like, again, it's like the ads trying to make it. Yeah.
It's a complex thing. It's not as easy as the concept on the screen. Like, sure, that concept I don't have a problem with. Like everyone's welcome, everyone's accepted. I would like for everyone to, instead of assuming they get us, to attempt to understand us. You know, like find questions, like find answers to questions, all that kind of stuff. And that concept is great. People trying to understand each other.
Yeah. I mean, but then the thing is like let that be the message. Like you don't need Jesus for that message. Like you don't need to take the best parts of Jesus that you like and don't look ugly or gross or whatever, and then just kind of smash those on. Like just the concepts, it's like on their own should be enough. But one more thing about the ads, I wanted to mention this again, something else I could go on for hours about, but so I'll just leave it at this, and then we'll move on to our actual topic for the night. But just one of the messages overall in the ad campaign about like he gets us is like, okay, all the like tough things you're going through, like Jesus understands it. And it just reminded me so much of one of the responses that we get. It's not necessarily directly to this argument, but at least tangentially. Yeah, that's the word. when people talk about things like the problem of evil and like why is there so much suffering, like there's this common Christian refrain, you've probably heard this, is like, well, Jesus may not take away your pain and your suffering, but he'll be there with you in the midst of it because he understands it. I'm like,
I'd rather have a person there.
yeah, like I can get that from people, but like if he's God, then why doesn't he just actually do something about it?
Well, and it's not good enough that Jesus is there. Like if assuming that's the case, assuming that's what's really going on, just having Jesus there isn't good enough. People need people like when like this the whole point of like going to get prayer from a person is that just Jesus there isn't good enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
you need a connection with a person. And if
Yeah.
just a connection with Jesus isn't good enough for mental and emotional health, then Jesus isn't everything. At least, like,
Right. Yeah, because then and that's a whole other issue is like you're like because I've been there where like I know Jesus should be enough, but it kind of feels like he isn't. So now I feel like extra guilty because I know he should be enough, but he's not. But
yeah, you
but
got
yeah,
to
I
hate
mean,
somebody, so why not yourself?
yeah, exactly. But that's the thing, like that's because if it even if it is supposed to be enough that he's there for me, just the fact that I mean, that kind of to show how not enough he is, just the fact that people need to be told that he's there for them
Yeah,
because it's not apparent enough. Like, no commercial had to tell me that you were there for me when I was going through some shit. I
yeah,
knew because you were there for me,
yeah.
in very
I got
like tangible
uncomfortable.
and
That's
real.
why I got silly on the
Yeah.
camera for a second. Sorry, that was diffusive of the
Hey,
situation, and I
no,
apologize.
no, that's okay. I do the same thing. So it's okay. Like that's how I know what I've said is meaningful when I get those kind of reactions out of you. So that diffusing meant a lot.
You're a diversion.
See, we know how to talk to each other. So yeah, that's really my thing with the whole he gets us. Like part of it is like, okay, he gets us. Like, okay, great. Let me know when he actually does something about it. You know, and just the fact that like, and this is something else I brought up on Facebook earlier is like, okay, if after like almost 2,000 years, you're still needing to spend like hundreds of millions of dollars on these ads, like if you're needing to spend that much money to still now try to convince people how great Jesus is, like maybe he's just not that great. Plus, I'm pretty sure most of the people who are watching these ads have already heard of the guy. So then there's
Yeah.
also that layer of like the arrogance of, oh well, they just haven't heard him the way we explain him. Like everyone else hasn't been doing it right, but now us with our big Hobby Lobby money, we're doing it right.
Well, it must
So
not be obvious. It must not be clear.
yeah,
The rocks must not be crying out. So
I know, fucking rocks.
yeah, fuck rocks.
Yeah, that's why we make them our pets.
So another layer to that, I was listening to the Majority Report earlier today, and they were commenting on kind of doing some I don't know. It was a weird combination. It was a Frankenstein of like straw manning, steel manning, Hobby Lobby's position. So it was just kind of like, yeah, freak show. Yeah, that they were trying to counter, and so it worked and didn't work. But one of the things that they brought up was the millions of dollars that are. What was it? How expensive is it for an ad in the Super Bowl?
I don't know. It depends. I don't know what the going rate is.
So it's
But
millions. It's tens of millions, probably. All right.
yeah.
So that is all to save somebody's like eternal life, they would say. And they say,
Mhm.
well, even if we save one person, it's worth it because of eternity or whatever. Like, well, with the money spent on the ad, you could save it was a ridiculous number of tens of thousands of actual people's lives, like from dying in the very near future. Like,
Yeah.
and like that. So your ad gets people into church, or the money that you were going to spend on that could keep tens of thousands of people on the planet. Like,
Yeah, because that's definitely what I remember from my days as a Baptist. Like, more important than actually helping someone is just telling them about Jesus. Because the mentality is that is the greatest way to help someone, to just tell them about Jesus. Again, as if they don't know about him already. So if I was like a starving homeless person, or like, all right, I've already heard of the guy, just give me a sandwich, or something,
Yeah.
or a place to live, help me out with housing. You don't need to. It's like, oh, like I promise you, none of these people who are actually needy are like, oh, Jesus, never heard of him. He sounds dope. Like,
Yeah.
I just highly doubt that was happening.
And okay, how many people join Christianity? Take it on as their faith. That sounds like they did it like on purpose, made a choice. They don't really. So
Yeah, I mean,
where was it going? Wait, hold on. I'm trying to keep my train of thought because it tried to get away. Before you even started talking, it was like. Okay, I just distracted myself. What was I talking about?
It's like you distracted myself too.
All right, so
People like they don't really choose to believe it.
Oh yeah, okay. So when people join Christianity or they convert, like I don't know of a single time where somebody converted just because they read it, just had access to the information. There's always a personal relationship attached to it, and then you join like that person's or a nearly identical religious culture to that person that introduced you through their connection with you to their faith. So it's a people connection thing.
Yeah, and you could have stopped saying the word culture after the first syllable, for what it's worth. But
What did I say?
you said culture, and I said you could have stopped that at the first syllable, which is cult.
Oh yeah. No, that went right over my head.
That's all right.
I was like, syllables.
Which is weird because you're taller than me. Well, any other thoughts on he gets us? Like, do you feel like he gets you, Matt?
I kind of used to, but like as a concept, like
yes, concept. Yep.
like conceptually, I was like, okay, maybe symbolically, but then like actually, I don't know if I was ever on board for actually.
Yeah, because I'm glad you said like the concept of it, because that's actually something I've been thinking about a lot, just with Christianity in general. Like, I've noticed if you really break it down, it really is just treated like just a bunch of concepts instead of actual like tangible, observable realities. It's like
Yeah.
It's like I felt comforted by thinking that Jesus understood what I was going through, but just because, so I wasn't actually comforted by Jesus actually being there for me and understanding what I was going through and being there with me. I was comforted by thinking that was the case. So I was just comforted by the concept of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there was never an actual. I was gonna say there was never actual like presence felt, but that's not exactly true. There were things that felt like presence. Some there were feelings attached to it.
Yeah, as I would put it, I felt things that I was told to think
Yeah.
for the presence.
Yeah, I was gonna say that like that was
Mm-hmm.
something. I'd like to find out what that really was instead of what I was told it was. Because whatever that is, it's something tangible.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and something else I noticed is a lot of times what I was really feeling was the presence of other people, and then I would attribute, like, the love and support I was getting from other people. It's like, oh, this is how God is loving me, through other people. But it was really just the other people. But
yeah.
I
think there's something there metaphorically saying that God was loving me through other people. not God as a being, but like whatever God represents, whatever what not even like what God represents, what that feeling of being in touch with God is or represents. I don't know. It kind of depends, like what your concept of God is. I guess is my final
Mhm.
point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think God at best, like best case, like any concepts of him are like used as like metaphors or stories, but
Yeah,
recognizing that it's just metaphors and stories. But yeah.
the show that I was okay. I've been watching that show Lucifer that I told you about, which is old,
Mm.
and I never watched it until recently. Um, well, God just finally came to Earth, and it's the Allstate guy. remember, remember old President Allstate? I think it was
Oh yeah. President,
24.
yeah, from
Yeah.
24. Yeah.
Um,
What's his name? Anyway, sorry. Go on.
I don't know, deep voice McBeardy. I don't. Um, so there's a mythology that's happening in the show and playing out, and there is a lot more layers that they were able to put into the story, having like metaphorical overlays um, with the mythology in the show, and how that like is conveying like several different layers of human psychology and belief at once. Where if you were to like lay that all out in an obvious story, it would take a long time and be boring. But
Hmm.
having all these overlapping things happening in the scene at the same time, like sometimes like several metaphors laid over the top of one another, like that is a really useful vehicle for conveying human experience and
Yeah.
psychology inner workings. I was
Yeah.
super impressed because it was a Netflix show that network TV had canceled.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this shouldn't be this good.
Well, I think I'm about to no longer have Netflix. So, yeah. I might see if I can squeeze that in this month. But I mean, I say that, but probably not. I mean, that's basically like it seems like a rather sizable percentage of my adult life has been people telling me I should watch things and me going like, "Oh yeah, I'll check that out," and then I don't.
Yeah,
So,
TV shows
yeah.
are difficult like that because there are a lot of good shows.
Mm-hmm.
I wish there was like I wish somebody was doing a condensed version. Like cram all the good parts, like a Cliff Notes version of a whole series.
I like to cram all the good parts.
Sometimes, sometimes the bad ones.
Yeah, whatever I'm in the mood for. All right, so now on to
Moving
the
right along.
official topic for the evening. So now that we're no longer Christians, I mean, so we're basically just Satanists now, right? At least that's what I hear.
Well, we could be. They don't seem like bad people.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I've read like the tenets of the Satanic Temple,
Yeah,
and like for people who aren't familiar, like, no, like for the most part, Satanists do not actually believe in a literal Satan. Like, those are just Christians.
hey, something just occurred to me. Um,
Ooh.
before I forget, when you said,
Hmm.
I always thought it was strange that the organization was called the Satanic Temple and it isn't like a singular place or a building. And I'm like, wait, they did the thing where the church is the people. They didn't name their thing after a building. They named it after the people. And I'm like, those cheeky bastards.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, so once you read the tenets of the Satanic Temple, it's like it's actually good stuff. I mean, I wish I would have remembered any of it or pulled it up, but basically the way I kind of describe Satanism is it's basically secular humanism, but for people who like wearing capes.
Yes, and I would say who like dark irony, and
Hmm.
because like often some of the sweetest people in the world, but they look like they look like razor blades. The human equivalent of razor blades in some cases.
Yeah. Or they look like Aaron Ra.
I think they like being iconoclastic. It's
Yes.
an organization
Yes.
for non secular humanist iconoclasts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the thing is, there've been like definitely several occasions where I've been tempted to at least look into joining, but like the other part of it is like maybe it's just like coming off of like Christianity and out of religion. I'm just still just not in the mood to like join another organization. Like even if I would say, okay, right now, like yeah, I'm fully on board with like all their tenets and stuff. And I know there's people, speaking of Aaron Ra, who've like joined it, not necessarily because of the temple itself, but more just because he appreciates like the activism they do as far as church state separation, more like progressive things. But I'm just like, especially given like I've mentioned before, like how often my thinking changes. Like I don't want to feel like I have to join an organization and then feel like I have. I mean, I know I wouldn't necessarily have to like completely be like 100% support everything they're all about.
Yeah.
But just but if someday I realize this really isn't for me, then happen to like leave it, which I'm sure it's probably no big deal to leave anyway. But like I said, it's more just I'm just not ready to commit yet. I'm still.
Well, I don't know if it makes you feel any better. I did look into what it entails to join, and like to be like an official member, like on their list of temple members. There's like a one-time fee. You get a membership card for funsies, and just to be official and whatnot. And that also goes to support their secular humanist kind of community activism. And weirdly enough, it's actually weirder that there are fundamentalist Christian conservatives compared to like the Satanists. Like their belief system, their world structure actually meshes better with ultra conservatism than Christianity's tenets, because they're not an ultra conservative organization, but there's a lot of like personal agency and a lot of personal agency involved, and letting people be their own people, basically.
Yeah, a lot of it like has like it's very like similar with like more like libertarian or even like anarchist type.
Yeah, but they're in favor of structure, though, it seems, too.
Yeah, like I said, but like if anything, they tend to like politically like maybe lean more left, but usually they lean more left usually in ways that more like libertarian people also lean left. Things like being pro-choice, pro like drug legalization, just general like liberal, like in the actual truest sense of the word liberal, meaning like liberating.
They're pro options, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but the other part of it is like what maybe keeps me from joining, honestly, is like I think my family's concerned about me enough as it is. Which also I gotta like shout out. Today's my mom's birthday, so happy birthday, Mom.
What?
Who you're definitely not watching, but real quick, this is something I've talked about like before, like when I've been on like interviewed by like other folks, like because people ask me things like, well, since like not being a Christian, how's it been like with your family? Have they like disowned you or shunned you, or are they like super judgmental? Like I gotta say, like I've been like super fortunate. Like my family, like obviously they don't like it that I'm no longer a Christian. Like okay, like all my family is Christian, pretty much. But yeah, like. But for the most part, like relationally, like everything's still like just the same. Like my parents are still awesome and loving and super supportive. Siblings, like aunts, uncles, cousins, like it's like every time we're hanging out, it's just like before. Only the difference, like now nobody asks me to pray at dinner anymore, which is nice. But But yeah, so but I realized for a lot of people like coming out of Christianity, like that is not the case. So I definitely feel very lucky that yeah, I still like my family's been supportive.
Yeah,
Like yeah,
dude, that sucks that some people like their family decides to put a concept above them. That
yeah,
sucks.
yeah, hmm yeah. So
Also,
if
like
anyone watching,
fundamentally,
if that's the case for you, one, like our hearts go out to you, but also just know there are resources out there for people. Um, like Recovering from Religion Foundation is one that comes to mind, but I'm sure plenty of other resources you can find out there. So please, if you need help, please get it.
yeah.
But yeah,
And if you just want to talk to regular people, like you can message us.
hmm
If you
yeah,
don't mind putting your name out there publicly.
yeah. Yeah,
um,
whether it's like commenting on one of the videos or any of our like Facebook posts or anything, or you can direct message like the Facebook page, or we have a Gmail address. I don't know if we have it posted anywhere, but it's just thehumanitylive@gmail.com. You can email us there, or either of our personal Facebook pages. I think I'm probably on there more than Matt. But
yeah,
like
I'm trying to.
Matt's not on
Starting
there
new
often, but
habits
when
is
he
hard. Yeah, starting
was
new habits is hard for me.
yeah, which I mean, not that social media is necessarily a habit you need to develop, but yeah. So yeah, that's part of why we're doing this. Obviously, like we've talked about before, is we just want other people to know, like, hey, there's other people who maybe think like you or thinking some similar thoughts, or at least our understanding of wherever it is you're at. So yeah, that's what we want this to be. We want this to be a place where people feel comfortable being who they are,
Yeah.
embracing their humanity, as it were.
Yep.
All right. So we're not Satanists, maybe.
No.
So
I mean, maybe easily secular humanist.
mhm,
Um,
yeah.
I
Though
could be I could be Quaker, or I could be Taoist. Those are my two. Because
mm,
Quaker isn't necessarily Christian.
mm,
It's the
for me.
concepts of light and dark are more of those terms are used more often than God. I think
Mm,
in discussions,
yeah.
because well, they signed on to the idea that we don't all have to call this the same thing the same thing.
Mm,
Like whatever it is that's going on that benefits people in religion, or in spiritual practices, I should say. Whatever it is about the practices um, that helps people, that's similar
mhm,
across all people. So who cares if we call it different names? But they're also not looking at it like it's for sure God, like the Christian God.
mm, hmm,
They're like, that's
yeah.
our deal for looking at it. That's how we perceive it, but we're not going to say that's what it is. They're
Mhm.
like, all right, and it's super introvert friendly. Most of their church service, or a big portion of it, is just sitting quietly and meditating on a particular thing, like at the same time.
Hmm.
I was like, my
Yeah, see, I
will.
think the introvert part of me would like that, but I think the ADHD part, that would kind of drive me crazy. It's like, I mean, I just gotta sit here quietly and meditate on a thing.
Well, it, no, just it sounds like it's often the similar things, but there's no
Yeah,
provided subject. They're like, no,
yeah.
everybody think about donkeys. Everybody
See,
think about Balaam's ass.
that I could get behind. Speaking of ass,
Balaam's ass features again this week.
I guess that's a running thing now.
I
So,
don't know. It could be. That popped in my head again.
but but honestly, like even the if I'm honest, even like the humanist angle, like I'm not saying I'm not humanist, but it's kind of hard to describe it. So maybe I should start here. So one of the things I've been realizing about myself is I think even more fundamental to how I kind of view life and like my philosophy now. like even more fundamental than atheism, partially just because like atheism really isn't a thing, like we've discussed. It's really just a lack of belief in God or gods. It's not really an like active, like actual outlook or philosophy or worldview or whatever. But I think what's even to me even more fundamental than that, I think even above anything else, I'm just more of a nihilist. Because that's
Yeah.
another thing I've been like learning more about. Because I used to think, because I mean they said so in The Big Lebowski. It's like nihilism just means you believe in nothing. It's like, but I found out it's like that's not really the case. It's really more
And there's
just
different kinds too.
yeah. But like nihilism at its core is really just saying there's no like big P purpose, like no ultimate purpose to reality or life or anything. And so from there, again, like atheism, in that sense, it's kind of like atheism, where atheism is denial of any like gods or just lack of belief in gods. Nihilism is the like denial of any larger, grander purpose. So then from there, you can go lots of different directions. You can just go like straight despair. It's like, well, that means like nothing matters and life isn't worth living and I'm just going to be depressed and, whatever. Or there's what I kind of gravitate towards, and I've heard this called lots of things. I've heard it called existentialism. I've also heard like compared to ideas like absurdism or one of my favorite terms, but I've heard is maybe not necessarily officially a term, but people use it anyway, is optimistic nihilism. I think there's this YouTube channel, Kurzgesagt.
Yeah, I think
basically, the German, it doesn't literally mean it, but it's a German for meaning like in a nutshell. From what I remember from German, like kurz means short and like gesagt means basically like said. So basically probably just like shortly said, which is like in a nutshell. But anyway, they have a cool video on optimistic nihilism. But that's basically, and from what I've heard, it's essentially existentialism. But I've also
what's the basics of existentialism?
See, from what I understand, like this is one of the things I've looked into. Like I would literally like do searches for what's the difference between optimistic nihilism and existentialism and absurdism. But like the things I would read, it would describe each of them, but it's like to me they all sounded the same. So basically,
it's one of the things I got here. Existentialism explores themes of individual existence, freedom, and choice. So existentialism may not work if someone doesn't believe in free will and freedom of choice, like as an actual thing that really happens. So
yeah. Well, but I still think like choice is not necessarily synonymous with free will or like making decisions.
Okay, I got you.
Because I mean, if you think about it, I mean that's how people talk about things like computers. It's like based on their input, they make decisions on like what am I going to do with that input.
Yeah, so you make a choice based on your parameters. It's not really like a free will thing.
Yeah. So basically, at least my understanding of optimistic nihilism, anyway, is recognizing there is no ultimate purpose. So that's the nihilism part. But then the optimistic part is, okay, that means I can make my own purpose. So there is nothing that needs to be meaningful or nothing that needs to mean certain things. And that means I can make whatever I want to be meaningful. I can find my own meaning.
Yeah.
So
that could easily sound sad to somebody. But so the thing with like the big P purpose, that involves a lot of shoulds. And with nihilism, there's no shoulds, there's just what is. And so like shoulds and purpose is kind of like the story that people have developed in their heads around understanding their internal drives to do things. So I think in some ways it's even simpler, or this is the way that helps me. I don't know if it's different or simpler, to be honest. Just looking at what is it that I want to do, like not what, because even for me looking at it like what's my purpose, then that very easily feels like, what should my purpose be? Um, but looking at doing just what I want to, but like what I really want to.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
somehow I like to ask myself, okay, why do I want to do that? And if there isn't another why, or it just feels like the base why, like it's because it's so simple, whatever the why is, uh, then then I need to keep digging and being my authentic self. And I think everybody being their authentic selves and living their feelings, basically, which doesn't mean you need to live it dysfunctionally, but if you need to
Yeah.
be dysfunctional, right?
Yeah.
I think we're gonna do whatever we want to do anyway. Like it's gonna come out in some way. If you
Hmm.
stuff a feeling
Yeah.
down, it comes out as something else. Like so,
Yeah. You kind of
and then
can't
it
help
comes
it
out
most of the
because
time.
you need to / want to say it or do it that way when at the time. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Because there's that phrase that I've like heard talk like thrown about in like philosophical discussions, like can you get an ought from an is, and like I still not exactly sure what that actually means because I've heard it explained, but I'm like that sounds like nonsense. So but the way
yeah.
I
Like
look at
would
it
it
is,
just be what is?
yeah, so the way I look at it is you can only get an ought from an if. So people will say, well,
Yeah,
like some common things like, oh, you ought to like eat like lots of fruits and vegetables because it's healthy, or exercise, like get plenty of sleep and like all this stuff. I'm like, well, you ought to do that if you want to be healthy.
yeah.
But if you don't give a shit,
Then it's,
then
your attempts are gonna fail.
yeah. And then like so you don't have to because yeah, the only but if that is your actual goal and something you want to work towards, then the only ought there is like, well, if you are going to achieve this goal, then you ought to do these things. But that's really it. So yeah, when it comes to just like
Yeah,
what
so
you want
are
to
you going to
do,
achieve the goal? Sorry.
yeah. So yeah, so like you were saying, yeah, just when it comes to like what do you actually want to do in life, because that's been for me, it's kind of like freeing and daunting at the same time, like realizing I don't have all these aughts that I used to have, you know, and
Yeah,
especially um
I hate odds.
yeah, because especially like coming off of like when I had cancer and like spending like the summer of 2021 pretty much like convinced I was going to die like pretty soon, and then going into remission, like I mean because that's I mean that's like a whole kind of mind fuck on its own, just going from I'm dying to oh now I'm totally fine.
And you're
But
like,
then
I finally have time to grasp the concept of dying, and I'm not anymore.
it's like
Like,
now that I just accepted it, it's not happening anymore. Damn it! But
yeah, now what?
so, but that was also the time. Pretty much right after that is when I like lost my faith and became an atheist. So I was like, okay, so like now not only do I have that cliche like the new lease on life. It's like now I don't even know what the fuck my life even is anymore. So it's like I got it. What is it? So yeah, so that's really where this whole, new life philosophy, at least for me, like really started because yeah, coming off of that and being like, okay, well, because that's one of the things that like really like gets on my nerves when people say things like, well, people like leave Christianity because they want their life to be easier and they want it to be all about them and like no, for me, like what would have been the easy choice coming off of that would be like, oh, look what God did for me. Praise God, He did this. Now, like, oh, think of the testimony I would have had, you know. But and
Yeah, no, but it wouldn't have been as big a deal.
what
Like
do you
it
mean?
wouldn't have been like meaning. I think going through that and being an atheist, not for the reasons of being angry at God. Uh, I think that's a bit. That's more like, huh, that's really interesting. I want to hear more about that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, would have been like, oh, another person, people prayed for them and their cancer went away. It's like other people, it doesn't. So this kind of means nothing.
Well, but that's the thing. I mean, you know, at least a lot of the people like in our circles, like close family and friends, like they wouldn't have looked at it that like because that's the thing. Like when something awesome happens, like, oh, you don't think about all the people that this didn't work out for. We're going to focus on the person that it did work for and say, see, look at God. You know, look at do the God stuff. But
And
yeah, but
then
that's
somebody brings up like, well, the new medicines, like they're not even sure how, like they know they work, but they're not sure how well they work. So like maybe this is just what that medicine does sometimes. And
yeah, because I know in my case, like with the immunotherapies I was on, that's what it's looking like. Oh yeah, these things just kind of do that now, and it's
but then you just like
yeah.
move the praise of God down a layer, and you're like, oh, well, thank God for the the researchers that created that and blah blah blah. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, then we should just praise God about just anything. Just like there's just it would be it's so ridiculous. It would be so tedious that it just makes the whole endeavor worthless. Because then would you just like thank God for like the fact that there's like positive and negative charges at all, like that cause like the atoms to do the things that cause the bigger things to happen, like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
it
Yeah.
makes the
That's
one occurrence of a thing way less important to focus on as a praise God situation. I
yeah,
don't know.
and especially when you look at the angle, like, because people like they told this to me in my situation. It's like, oh well, God healed you through medicine. Like that's the miracle. It's like, okay, well if well, then what took him so long? Like how many thousands of people, like in the meantime before these things were developed, died of the same thing that I had?
Yeah,
Or not to mention all the things that people are still dying from. And also, if medicine and like medical technology is like from God and his gift to us, well, then why, at least here in America, why is it so damn expensive?
yeah.
And so, and globally, people have such limited access to it. Like, what was he thinking? This was the best he could come up with? I mean, sure,
Yeah,
it worked for me,
it's
but
really interesting that God developed all these things at the exact time that human beings were capable of coming up with it themselves.
I know, weird, right? Yeah, it's so many times like God works in mysterious ways, I'm told. It's like his ways always seem to be like he's trying to make it look like it's just natural process,
Yeah.
which is a, odd choice on his part. But yeah.
What is it on the eight? On day zero, God created natural causes. Like
And they just kind of took over from there.
theism.
Mm.
God did a thing and then fucked right off.
As he should. So yeah, so coming off of that, like I mean that's so like recovering from cancer and like something that's seeming like certain death. I mean that's enough of a reason for someone that kind of gets. That's always a story you hear from people like, oh, I gained a new perspective on life, and I was actually kind of dreading that part because like I hate cliches and stuff, so I really didn't want to be that guy. I was like, oh, I got a new perspective on life now, but it's like, God damn it, I kind of have a new perspective on life now. So
I think it's unavoidable. I think you go through like
yeah,
it's not even a once in a lifetime thing because it's more rare than that. Like you go through something that's
yeah.
like less than a once in a lifetime event, and like people aren't equipped for that because it's not something that happens typically.
Yeah, but the thing is, I found like coming off of that, but I at least am sort of responding to it in different ways, and at least different ways than what I've seen as portrayed as the more like stereotypical. Like, I mean, I'm not about to like write a book or like go climb Mount Everest or all these things like people do. I got a new lease on life. Now I'm going to do all those things I wanted to do but didn't do before. Like, well, apparently for me, like the things I've been wanting to do, it's like I think since recovering from cancer, like I actually do things like I think I play more video games now than I used to. So if that, I guess that's a thing for me now, or I basically I do more nothing since since recovering, because I've really, again, going back to
I
like
wouldn't
figuring
call
out.
it nothing.
Well, yeah, we wouldn't, but what I guess what
It's
most
more like
people,
personal enrichment stuff.
yeah,
Yeah.
because I think what most people like the way they talk about is, well, now I'm going to focus on the things that are really important. So, but things that people usually think, oh, I'm going to, again, do things like focus more on my career and like and achievements. Basically, achievement is at least in America and like in Western culture, that's kind of what we focus on is like
Yeah.
living your best life. And
Accomplish
but
more.
for me,
Yeah.
it's just yeah. But for me, it's just realizing, okay, what actually does make me happy? What do I actually want? Because like the job I had at the time, and I still have like that job, but like by most metrics, like I mean, it's a good job, but it's by no means like it's not has nothing to do with like the field I studied in college. It doesn't pay a ton. It's not like this big prestigious type of thing at all, but it's a work from home. It's a Monday to Friday. It's like regular hours. It's also super flexible, which has been great. Given like, with all my doctor's appointments and things like with the kids' schedules and all that. So it's like, but so by a lot of people's metrics, the way they measure like success, like this job is not me being successful, but by the metrics that I have for myself and what I want out of life, it's very successful.
Hmm.
So that's been the thing for me, just really because and just realizing how much of the expectations I had on myself were, again, going back to shoulds, just all these things that I thought I was supposed to have as expectations on myself. So
Yeah.
just being able to just kind of slowly like peel those away and like just get down to the essence of like finally like really like, in a lot of ways just like discovering myself and what I actually want out of life. And so in
Yeah.
that sense, losing my faith has been like a big positive.
Yeah. I
But
agree. I
yeah.
agree that for you. I agree that for me. I think
Yeah.
that's the thing that I think that's some. If there's something that I'm evangelical about now, it's that just like
Mhm. Mhm.
I don't know, be. So that was one of the things that I would talk to GPT about.
Mhm.
Was the phrase "be you and be well" was stuck in my head.
Mm.
Um, I mean, it's not like some people have mental health challenges, and so like being them uh, may be something that needs additional support. So, but there's still it's still healthier to go through that without any like external expectations on yourself, or even internal ones, because like one of my autistic things is demand avoidance, and
Mm.
sometimes
Mhm.
um, like I learned about how demands can be self-imposed too. They're not always external. So
Yeah.
if,
Mhm.
and I was like, no shit, that's exactly that's exactly
Oh
what
yeah.
my problem is today. I was like, not today,
Mhm.
but like another previous day. I was like,
Yeah.
I wasn't living up to my own expectations, and then like it was completely immobilizing. I just wanted to sit somewhere and do absolutely nothing, and because I'm like, why am I acting like there's demands on me? And then I watched the
Mhm.
video on YouTube, and it's like, oh, it's me.
Oh yeah, I've been feeling that a lot recently because like especially like, but yeah, a lot of those feelings of yeah, just feeling guilty because I feel like I'm not accomplishing enough or getting enough done. Whether it's like big picture things or even just like little things like around the house, it's like oh I haven't been cleaning up enough or I got all these like errands and stuff I got to do. I haven't or projects I haven't been taken care of, but part of me is like realizing I need to have like a lot more grace, sympathy, empathy, whatever you want to call it, just for myself, especially realizing like what I've been through in the past few years. Because like I found online, you'll see like several different lists, but like a list of like the top 5 like biggest stressors that someone can go through in their life. And I realized like in the past like 3 to 4 years, I've gone through all 5. Some of them multiple times, sometimes 3 at once.
Yep.
So just realizing, oh, coming off of that, if I just want to have a day where I just do nothing, or just do at least just do nothing, productive, then that's fine.
Yeah. Because you're not gonna. Yeah, you're not gonna cheat yourself out of like a better life by doing what you want. Like it.
Hmm.
Um, it's not gonna immobilize people the way I think, especially in America with the success and the achievement thing. Like people's individual worlds aren't gonna fall apart in just general malaise if you focus on what you want. And
Yeah, yeah, totes. Yeah, but speaking of Chat GPT, apparently you had a conversation with him, her, it. I don't know how we're
on my
referring.
phone, it's a she.
Ah, okay.
Because just the dude just sounds like he's trying to get shit done when he talks to you.
Yeah, dudes, I swear. So what were you talking with Chat GPT about?
I was kind of just like talking through like what my worldview is. More seeing like um the stuff that I know about myself, what categories that fit in, because um looking at those categories, I'll probably realize some more things about myself that I was like, oh yeah, that's me. I just
Mm-hmm.
had trouble digging it out or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
so what I ended up with after talking a lot, and there's a lot of I only copied and pasted the stuff that I wanted to make sure that like I went back over from the conversation, because that like old Chatty gave back a lot of awesome stuff. Um,
Mm-hmm.
all right, so my so I was having a conversation, and then I had asked ChatGPT to summarize what I had said, because I rambled for a long time just doing like string of consciousness kind of talking sometimes, and
Mm-hmm. It's
then
good
so I was
practice. Yeah.
like, Chatty, what happened? Summarize all that for me. So what I came up with was embracing paradox is a big deal for me. Um, like things that can and can't be at the same time, or things that occupy the same place in emotion or importance, or um, why sometimes it feels like things are or aren't a particular way, like it's both at the same time, and how kind of learning to embrace both at the same time, just I don't know, it's just better mental and emotional health. Big one for me is authenticity and acceptance, like being my authentic self, accepting who I am, and authentic people of acceptance are also really important to me. Those are the people that like I enjoy being around,
Yeah.
and I don't need to change how I behave, or I don't feel like I need to fit into a particular culture mode.
Yeah,
Um,
that's huge. Yeah. Because I've
um,
realized, like, that's one of the things I've realized about, like, speaking of like what's important in life is, I mean, because like for most of my life, I've kind of had a hard time finding other people that I really had like that much in common with. Like my interests tend to be pretty different than a lot of the people I'm around. But I found what's really important. I mean, at least having some things in common obviously is good, but I found what's even more important than that is just finding people around whom you can be your real, true, honest self.
yeah, and I've also noticed that that's almost exclusively neurodivergent people for me.
Yeah, well, I fit that category. So,
Yeah. So like,
Yeah.
because I think neurodivergent people, for the most part, like they have a really hard time not being themselves. Like it's super uncomfortable.
Yeah. 'Cause that's something I've my life and most like social situations, like even around like family and friends, or like realizing like, oh, I was not being myself, like
Yeah.
probably most of the time, a lot of the time. So yeah.
I think interconnectedness is really important. Like a feeling of being interconnected with the world, and
Mhm.
especially with other people. But just a general feeling of oneness is important. Like
Mm.
that's just like a sense that I have.
Mm.
Um, and on a scientific level, that's true.
Yeah.
Like we're all just different. Yeah, it's kind of like reality is a sheet, and then like people are all like finger puppets made out of the sheet, walking around.
Yeah.
We're all different expressions of the same whatever.
Mhm. Yeah.
Uh, so in the individual exploration thing is an important tenet of the Church of Me.
I love that church. Yeah. The
Yeah,
hymns are way better there than most churches, I must say.
it can be anything. It can be anything that like that connects with a person, and um, like whatever helps somebody, like a song. It can be any song that helps a person live that moment more deeply. Like that's
Hmm.
And like weirdly enough, a lot of those same things that produce the same feels that you would get like in a church worship thing. A lot of that is it's to do with like the instrument tones and the keys and the chords and the
Oh yeah.
tempo and like, and then when you get on, if you have a light show in your church
Hmm.
now, like as long as you come there willing to have an experience and like you want to have one, then
Hmm.
like you're basically going to be puppeted by the choreography.
Oh yeah. I mean, and there's lots of, like you can see like there have been like articles, books, videos, like all done. Like there's like an actual science behind, well, basically the manipulation tactics of like
Yeah.
most church services. It's like not saying they're doing it on purpose, but there's definitely an actual science to it. It's like there's a reason.
Well, they're doing it on purpose because it works. They may not know or want to know why it works.
Yeah, I would say they're not purposely trying to be like manipulative, like anymore. Like
Your audio cut out.
yeah,
Your
yeah. It
audio
looks
cut
like
out
we
for like five.
disconnected. All right, are we back?
It says live on my end.
Okay.
Are we?
Yeah, I think I'm back.
Okay.
Yeah. So
And we're back.
yeah, so yeah, like I was saying, like I'm not saying like they're like intentionally being manipulative, like in the sense of being like misleading or deceptive or anything. But yeah, they're definitely intentionally doing these things because, like you said, it seems like these things work, but they think, oh, it's working because it's the spirit or this is God doing a thing through us, so
Yeah.
we need to keep doing it because it's working. But not realizing that no, it's working because like this is just how brains work, and you're manipulating that. So.
But it's manipulation for Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, if the spirit is moving someone, all right. I just thought of this. If the spirit is moving you, well, it's moving you before you said yes. So that sounds like stranger danger.
It's like, did you consent to that moving?
Well, and Mary never consented either. The angel was just kind of like, "You're going to have a baby," and she was just like, "Yep, that's going to happen." Because
Yeah, it's like
It's like whatever
It's like,
BC, I'm a woman. That's just gonna happen. That like
yeah, it's just like you could say, "Well, I consented to the robber who had a gun to my head when I gave him my wallet." It's like, yeah, sure. Like I freely gave it to him, right?
well, your
Yeah.
options were limited.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. God's a douchebag.
Right?
Except for the times when he's awesome. That also came into play in the show Lucifer. Yeah, he was all lovey-dovey, and then his kids started fighting, and he was like, got all wrathy for a second. Caused a storm to happen outside.
Like you do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
God told it in the show. God told a demon who wanted a soul, because demons don't have souls, and she wanted a soul because her life felt empty, and then she went to God because he was on Earth, right, hanging out in a cardigan, and
Yeah.
wearing socks and sandals, Birkenstocks.
God
and
would do that.
she's like, I want to have soul, and he's like, why? And he's like, you're perfect just the way you are, and she's like, the fuck you say? She goes, I'm a demon. She's like, look, shows like her real face. And it's like all like rotted and burned on one side. And she's like, perfect, huh? And so he's doing all the unhelpful God things where like they kind of sound great, but then you're like,
I just love that as
that's
all the
completely tone deaf. She's like, help me, I'm hurting. And he's like, what? You're perfect just the way you are. And she's like, really not the point fucking at all.
I love that all the unhelpful God stuff. That's that's a thing. Yeah.
He's super amenable and like seems cool to be around, kind of, but like he just says that weird shit back all the time.
Yeah. It's like he gets us, perhaps.
I don't know any stranger that says to somebody that's a stalker. He's like, I get you. You're like, what? No.
And you are.
Help.
I need another adult.
You're like, I get you. Don't touch me.
I get you. Well, don't.
It's like the song from Breck. Whoa, hey, don't touch me. Do you remember that?
No.
Space
I
Ghost.
laughed anyway.
Space Ghost Coast to Coast on.
I remember the show. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember driving down Highway 40 in my big old pickup truck.
Well,
driving down Highway 40 in my. Oh, it's over.
It was. All right, you gotta listen to it later. It was on the Brack album, and just somebody's doing like terrible beatbox in the background, but somehow staying on rhythm also, and he says, yeah, he says, well, hey, don't touch me, and then he goes, la 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 la. Whoa, hey, don't touch me.
I love that show, but I just feel like it's so unfortunate that show was on before I had access to drugs.
Well, you can still watch it on the YouTubes, and drugs still exist. They both still exist.
That's true. I wonder if I could still get my marijuana card, but I guess it's legal in Ohio now anyway. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, hey, we should talk later.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
Is this guy you?
No, I was about to say he looks a lot like me, but isn't me.
So yeah. So and any other fun insights from your conversation with Skynet or whatever?
Well, I had some fun. I'm not going to go into it right now, but I had some fun, like saying, okay, so what would be? So Proverbs are like a bunch of wisdom statements in the Bible, and so what kind of wisdom statements would would be, if my philosophy were a religion, what would my wisdom statements kind of be? And so that was a fun exercise to hear that.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Taoism is just right up my alley.
Taoism.
Yeah, it's based in determinism, which is the no free will. Um, it's a process playing out, um, and the inner observer concept. Uh, so, like, if we're able to observe ourselves internally, kind of like reflect on things,
Mm-hmm.
who's doing the reflecting? Or if you're observing what your brain is doing, who's observing? Like,
Mm.
even if it's still you, like some people go on, yeah, maybe we're all God or part of God. It's like maybe there wouldn't be any way to prove that, but
Yeah. I mean, you
but
first
just
have to establish that there is a God before you can say you're part of him. But yeah.
but to be able to divide internally and reflect on yourself, that's something. That's just a weird space, like
Yeah.
to look in a mirror and like not know which side of the mirror you're on, like that, that kind of thing. Um, it sounds freaky, but it can also be kind of awesome at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that the evils, like the things that would counter what the thing, like what me, if I'm still doing the religion context, like if I'm a religion, it sounds like I'm like doing a dating show thing. If I'm a religion, what color is the sky? What? Uh,
Hot dogs.
so the things that would be evil to me, like inauthenticity, like
Ooh. Mm-hmm.
that feels toxic in other people, and when I'm doing it, it's like super toxic for me.
Mm.
Um, Overthinking, because you can't go with the flow and overthink at the same time. And
Mm.
going with the flow is definitely a more comfortable place to be for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, if overthinking is wrong, then I'm definitely going to whatever hell is in your religion.
no, there's no hell. It's just things that like being in that headspace makes my perception of what's happening worse. It just makes it more unpleasant. I don't
Yeah.
know if our perception of things actually changes what happens, but it definitely changes our experience of it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. For
Also,
sure.
a fear of vulnerability is a big thing for me still.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but vulnerability is one of the things I highly value.
Yeah.
So,
Mm.
two sides of the same coin kind of thing. Like isolation and rigid expectations are also things that would be big problems. And I do have a tendency to isolate during certain like events of life kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I won't go into it now, but like you can ask the Chat GPT things about like okay, so what would parents in my made up religion what kind of things would be important to do with their kids or to teach their kids, and basically it just spits things back out at you that you already said but rearranged when you're talking about this kind of stuff with it,
Yeah.
um, which is still super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, just the authenticity thing is big, and being in the present moment, and
Yeah.
uh, really just listen to the Tao Te Ching. The,
Mm.
the first half. The second half gets into like advice for leadership,
Yeah.
but equating like the flows of life in like personal life with things with nature, and how like a river is only going to flow one way. It's only going to flow downhill, and like you can try to stand up in the river. It's going to sweep you downstream eventually. It's just going to be a worse experience getting there. So
I bet. I bet.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like that idea of things in science kind of repeat like fractals. Like something
Yeah.
that's true in nature is true in science, but then even higher up than that, it's like true in people's lives, true in communities. Like
Mm.
everything
Wow.
moves in the same kind of way.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, because people are just part of nature, so it makes sense that we function like nature, and yeah.
I wonder what it would be like to be able to observe your own life constantly. To both like, now I'm not saying dissociate, but to
Mm.
to not detach from it like you're watching a stranger's life happen, but watching your own life happen in the moment. To like
Mm.
live as the inner observer
Yeah.
and regular me.
Yeah. So yeah, like that's actually something I've been thinking about. So this is kind of a tangent, but kind of not. It's more like this is like a facet of like another line of thinking that I've been having. Like speaking of like being neurodivergent and how that's perceived by other people, like particularly in a like religious context, or been we've like we talked about before. There's so many things about being neurodivergent that are like sometimes just outright called sinful, or just
Yeah.
things that we need to like work on or repent of. Like, but so
No, and I had somebody tell me that recently when I was basically explaining like I'm autistic and like I didn't mean to be a jerk. I didn't know I was being one, and this is the first time you're telling me now you're like we can't be friends anymore. And I was like, I was sad, and I'm like, wait, this is a you problem because
sadly, yeah.
but yeah. Oh, and then what I was trying to get to was he ended he I wasn't going to use pronouns to keep it more mysterious, but
If
so he
it
said he
still
said
leaves
something.
it's still a possibility of several billion people you could be talking about. So
I
it's not,
know it's just a personal hang up.
yeah, I get you. I get you. Yeah.
Well, he said something about like his healing and going through stuff, and then he said something about my healing too, and I'm like, no, buddy, this is an autism thing. Like this isn't like a healing thing. It's not like this is just me, and I'm saying like I didn't mean to do that, and I'm sorry I did, and here's what I really think about the things, and yeah.
Yeah.
So that
If it's a healing thing at all, it means like other people need to heal their perception of the thing.
yeah.
So
So yeah, the
yeah.
whole sinful to in our church it was almost sinful to be an introvert.
Oh yeah. I definitely felt that. But but one of the things that I find I do that most people would look on this sort of activity and think it's very like you want to call it like narcissistic or whatever, but I enjoy doing things like going back and like rewatching our episodes here, or like when we were doing the podcast, I'd like re-listen to it, or when I've been like on other people's like YouTube or Facebook or other streams, like I'll go back and watch those all the time because like part of and like it's like, oh, you just like watching yourself and listening to yourself talk. Like, no, it's because like my grasp of reality or lack thereof sometimes is like sometimes I need to go back and watch these things almost like, oh, that was like an actual thing that actually happened. Like, oh, this is what I actually, oh, that's me. I'm actually, so it's like my concept itself is like, it's like I need to actually watch myself to like, oh, sometimes it's literally like, oh, I'm a real person who really did those things. Cool. And honestly, some of it is also like when it comes to like our show, just more remembering, okay, what did we talk about last week?
Yeah, like
You know,
it
stuff
can
like
take a
that.
while to process stuff, and
Yeah.
yeah, and seeing it
Yeah.
again would help.
Yeah. So in a way, like what you were talking about, like being able to like watch your life. So for me, like, because I'm gonna go back and probably watch this episode tomorrow because that's really it. Like I'm watching my life. It's like, oh, like so it's the only way I can think to describe it is I'm making myself more real to me. And to me, that's
That's a
just
good.
so cool
That's a good
that
thing.
and to me, that's just so cool that I can do that
Yeah,
through things like this. But for most people, like, oh, you're just like so like self-absorbed. You just like watching yourself and listening to yourself talk. It's like, no, this is Yeah.
Well, it's also helpful because like sometimes like my view of myself in whatever situation that was different than what was actually happening, and so to see what was
Mhm.
actually happening as like an external viewer um,
Mhm.
helps me have a more clear picture of like who I really am or how I
Mhm.
really am. Um,
Mhm.
all right, so real quick story. I lived with a guy. I'm gonna say his name because it's awesome. I wish I could say his last name too because it's even better with the full name. First name was Fletcher,
Mm.
and so I lived with him and another guy from University of Cincinnati when we were doing paid internships out in Boston. And Fletcher, never call him Fletch, always call him Fletcher.
Yeah.
So he was,
I'll be sure not to when I don't see him. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. He was a weird dude. Like he would wear breathe right strips to the office. You know those things you put on your nose to, like for
Mhm.
sleep because he thought it
Yeah.
looked like he had a broken nose. He and he thought that made him
It
look
does.
tough. But he also knew it looked exactly like a breathe right strip, and so like he was just messing with people. Dude was like aggressively autistic, like very a
I love that
very
concept.
special human being. He, like we drove around. All right, I'm getting off topic. What
What?
was shit? What is? Oh, that listening to
We-
yourself. He got a
Yeah.
he got a recording device to tap his own phone, like in our apartment, because he because he called and it had a voice modulator on it, so he would call people he knew and like say lines from The Devil's Advocate, that movie.
Uh-huh.
Al Pacino, he would. God's up there laughing his sick fucking ass off, and he would listen to it like on his drive to work. These prank voicemails that he called to people that he knew, and and then
I
he
love
called
that.
the cable company one time and recorded the conversation, but didn't tell her, which is illegal. But it was funny as hell. Uh,
Many
and
illegal things are.
in that part of Boston, the cable had like several Spanish shopping networks, and
Mm.
we're paying for these. And so he calls the cable company and was like, it just having a very logical argument with the woman on the phone about why he shouldn't have to pay for Spanish shopping when he doesn't use them or speak Spanish. And he would listen to that over and over again and laugh his ass off. That is a little narcissistic, I think, but also really funny.
Yeah. Which I mean, but like part of it is like I said, I can relate because like a lot of times, like when I'm in, even like when I'm in a social situation, like even like right now, like I'm talking, but honestly, at the same time, I'm also like most of the time doing like some pretty intense like disassociating. So that's like, even though I'm the one talking, like right now, I'm listening to me talk. But like, wow, he's saying some words. Like, oh, that's me. So, so I, like I said, I totally get like being entertained, like in a totally non-narcissistic, self-absorbed kind of way. Just being entertained, like going back and like listening to yourself. Because, like I said, it's like because a lot of times in the moment, I'm not really in the moment, like at all. So that's a way, like I said, for me to bring myself back to that moment because when I was in the moment, I wasn't paying attention. So now I can pay attention to the moment I was in. If this is making any sense at all to anybody,
Makes sense to me.
well, good. So, so yeah, so that's again one of the many things that I've been like figuring out about myself and being okay with figuring out about myself and not just viewing everything through the lens of what does God say about this? What am I supposed to think about this biblically? Or what is the Spirit telling me about this? Or like, is this a thing I need to repent of? It's like, no, this is just a thing about me. And yeah.
Speaking of people like discovering or rediscovering themselves and autism, like I have not come across a single trans person in my own life or that I have seen YouTube channels of uh, who isn't either ADHD or autistic.
Hmm.
They all seem neurodivergent. I don't. That's just my personal experience, and It's now that I was thinking about it today, it would be kind of hard to. It's really difficult to picture a trans person who isn't neurodivergent, like
Hmm.
driven 9 to 5, like success, like accomplishment, climbing the corporate ladder, like
Hmm. Yeah,
and
I
and
don't know.
there is a proven substantial. Oh, I just dropped my fidget. Substantial. I got another one though.
Okay. Phew.
Um, there's a substantial statistical overlap, autism and the trans community especially, but just in general LGBTQ. Um, and there is a lot of research
I
carried out.
lost you there for a second. So they said there's an overlap between what?
Autism and LGBTQ people.
Oh,
So
interesting.
like it's substantial and it's enough that there's a pretty decent interest in doing research to see what the overlap is um, and
Hmm.
I think an important part of that would be that the outcome would have to be that if LGBTQ it doesn't come from if those modes of being don't come from if those aren't a disorder, then ADHD and autism aren't disorders either. They're also just a different way to be human.
Yeah, that's like one of the things I was thinking about as you were saying that. It's like because like we have words for things like autism or ADHD or whatever, but I feel like we only call those things out because they're just not typical. Like I think
Yeah,
if everyone was just what we currently call autistic, then we wouldn't call it autistic. That would just be normal.
and guess what?
So,
Guess what? Guess who comes up with all the names for these things? Neurotypical people.
yeah,
Because the neurodivergent people didn't know there was a problem.
they're like, I just thought I was me.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, I thought everybody else sucked.
See, I think we need to like make like kind of turn around, like make typical sound like more of a pejorative. Like, oh yeah, all you typical people.
You all look the same to me.
Yeah.
No, no, but we really do have that experience when we go to like big festival environments like Oktoberfest or something,
Yeah.
and
Mm.
and like all the white women in like same age brackets, they're all wearing the same uniform. Like they clearly all shop at the same stores. Like one year it was vertical stripes on like circus looking pants, and
Yeah.
like everyone in their 20s had one, and it was and
Hmm.
And like
Yeah.
you could like, tell the neurotypical people or the ones who were trying to be neurotypical because they all were wearing the same thing. The neurodivergent people all looked awesome.
Yeah, I like feel like telling those people you couldn't disassociate if you tried. Suckers.
uh,
No, speaking of Oktoberfest.
oh yeah, I don't have that. I just have my glass from Brewery 33 near Hawking Hills.
Well, this is actually my water cup. So
It's a good water cup.
mhm. Yeah. All right. So any other I guess thoughts on forming new philosophies?
Oh,
About it?
losing us versus them thinking.
No.
Even me versus me. Losing
Oh, that's
even that
big.
internally is difficult, but feels like a much better option. And it really feels like the next stage in I think human evolution. Like now we're to the point where if we maintain the us versus them thinking when the world is so connected, um, like we're to the point where even like minor countries in Africa, if like one of them just goes to complete hell and starts like sucking in uh, just increases growing chaos in the area.
Hmm.
Um, because anywhere you have a failed state, like it creates a vacuum. and problems grow from there.
Yeah.
But we're to the point where like everything's so connected that the us versus them thinking is just going to be us killing us. Like there is no them anymore. Nobody is so far away that you can just bomb them and it won't affect you.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's been.
So we either evolve past this or we die somewhere around now. Like
Give or
that's
take.
kind of how it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause that's something I've been thinking about is just like the whole concept of tribalism, versus
Helped for a while.
basically a shrinking world.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, I still have family or that I see or like other occasions to basically just go out in, the middle of like very rural, red state America. And like while I'm out there, like a part of me is like, okay, I kind of get it. The whole idea of we just want to live the way we're living and be left alone. And
Oh yeah.
we don't want to try to be like, have to be forced to be like those big city folks. And, so, I mean, if you're in a community of just people like you, then it makes sense to not want to have anything to do with people who are not like you. So, like, I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying, like, I get it. But the problem is all those people can vote to affect all the people not like them.
See, that's where I was going with it in my head too. There's nothing wrong with things are you've reached a Nash equilibrium in your community. That's game theory talk. It's like your community, whether it's a dysfunctional community or not, it's the way it is because it's reached an equilibrium in some way. So I can understand like wanting it to stay however it is because that's how life is. Now, I think that sentiment gets weaponized by a political party when they tell people that the other side won't let you stay that way. And that's hardly ever the case. Now,
right. I mean, you see that was like that's basically what made Jordan Peterson famous was like that stuff in Canada where it was basically about like more just like protecting like trans like people and like, but Jordan was like turning it into saying, oh, they're going to force us to use people's preferred pronouns. And it's like, no, there was nothing in whatever bill he was talking about that had anything to do with like the fucked up way he was talking about
like, no, you're just feeling cultural pressure to conform. Like, like you are realizing that if you continue to use somebody's, like previous pronouns, you're going to look like a dick. You don't want to look like a dick, but you want to be a dick. So it has to be everyone else's problem. Now you're being forced not to be a dick just because you're split internally on how to be or not to be a dick.
Yeah, or even like in our country, like just inclusion. I mean, just that the fact that like TV shows and movies or whatever or commercials are just having people in them who are LGBTQ.
Yeah,
people like, oh, they're shoving it down our throats. Yeah, it's like, oh, they're shoving it down our throats. It's like, no, they're literally just existing in the same space that we've been existing.
If you think that gay dude is being shoved down your throat, that sounds like maybe your gay thing.
It's like sounds like maybe you like it. Which obviously that's fine.
Look. No one's saying anything about shoving anything down your throat. That's already in your head. That sounds like something you should reflect on. Like,
sounds like you wanted it.
That's wrong and funny. I like it.
Well, I would say it's like that reversal because like that's the thing they usually say towards like the people for whom that's like a legit, issue. They're like, oh, sounds like they wanted it. It's like, no, this sounds like you wanted it.
It's you like it now? Sounds like you love to hate trans people.
You're like, glutton for punishment. Yeah.
You dislike trans people, huh? You really kind of hate them. It's like,
hey, some people are into that. That's cool.
I don't know. It just sounds like you maybe want trans people to tell you that you're naughty.
But I want to go back to like what I was saying about like these communities who maybe before were like more insular, like everyone here is just like us and we want to keep it that way, and more like trying to say, oh, I kind of get that, but even other than just like the outside influence of like the big cities or like the blue states or whatever, but the other problem is that like we're seeing happen more and more is like even the people from within those communities like that are honestly usually more just like straight white cis hetero, usually religious. You can still have people even just like born into that community who are different in that community. So now, so so that's the benefit of being more connected. So say like someone is born into one of those like very like heteronormative, type communities who's trans or bi or gay or whatever. Because like before, like if that was all they had and they're like, I cannot be myself in this community, like that is hell.
Yeah.
And so at least now that there's a possibility with like, the wider, like bigger, like more interconnected community that, hopefully they can get out of that situation. Some people can, some people can't, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
that reminds me, there's a lot of state anti-trans legislation right now that is awful.
Yeah.
And some of it's trying to happen in Ohio. It's especially bad in Florida. Anywhere where the anti-trans sentiment is being codified in some way, like it's going to increase self-harm among the trans community in those areas, because it's one of the terrible parts of, I think, evolution is that I think people want to off themselves when they feel ostracized by the community, because it's like believing the lie that you're a threat to the community and you need to go. Like, or
you don't belong. Which, again, speaking of like we were saying earlier, like please reach out. Like if that's you, like please reach out for help. Like, I understand like a lot of people it's easier for some than others, but I just hope that anyone in those situations.
And I can't remember the name of the church. There is an especially trans affirming church in Pleasant Ridge, Cincinnati. They have signs outside, Trans Lives Matter, and every sign has the name of a trans person that somebody at that church knows, or they go there. So if there are places for Christians who are trans to find like Christian specific support. I wish I remembered the name of it, but I'm sure if somebody just searched like trans affirming Pleasant Ridge Cincinnati Church, like they would probably find it.
Yeah, if anyone watching knows, like feel free to leave it in the comments or whatever. But because I have like some friends who they're a couple, and one of them is trans, and they basically said it's like, we're probably just going to have to move out of the state just because they literally don't feel safe, like in a lot of places here, which fucking sucks.
That kind of stuff makes me want to endorse like vigilante groups who are like,
I get that.
Like so. It's like, sir, your ignorance is a threat to you and your neighbors. Your ass kicking shall commence. But that's fascism.
But if it's for a good cause.
Well, that's the thing. I saw a clip where Tucker Carlson nodded to the proposed statement of maybe fascism is what we need to get things back on track, and he nodded, and I was like, what? He's like, yes, and I was like, What?
Yeah.
Won't be any Hugo Boss on uniforms for that fascist army. That's going to be Walmart specials, I think.
Uh,
No, there is going to have to be more protests or demonstrations with people who just everyone.
just all
Because
the people. Yeah.
the Heritage Foundation is behind like all the anti-trans legislation. They are advocating and advising um, the exclusively conservative lawmakers. From there might be some Democrats in there, but I don't know. Not that I'm aware of. Um,
Yeah.
they have a plan, and their plan is to make being trans illegal in the United States. Um, Now, really, what they're saying is to be someone who is obviously trans, because there are a lot of trans people who pass for one gender or the other, like convincingly to people who aren't friendly to trans people. Um, so they're really just saying we don't want any visual indication that somebody's trans, or yeah, it's and all of these steps are incremental steps in an established plan to get it to be little by little illegal to be trans in the United States. It's in each one of these bills in the states, it's like it's not the final draft. Like these are all like first step drafts, and then they'll try to incrementally increase the severity until it's illegal. Period. Um, Here's the thing, though. All right, there's an increasing number of autistic people, and there's an increasing number of LGBTQ people. So I think there's a good chance that the queer community and autistic people are a new stage in human development. Because there definitely seems to be more people who um, couldn't pass for typical if they wanted to. Do you know what I mean? Like it's things that like now I could be totally full of shit, but it's like things that used to be like more latent, like easier to repress without not wanting to be alive. Um, Completely unhealthy, but now it seems like there's especially newer generations of people like it just like that they can only be them. Like being even like pretending to be someone else just isn't an option. Uh, so yeah, it makes me wonder if it's a new development in human gender and sexuality and just psychology. Like there's no indication that it's going away. is my point. It just seems to be more and more necessary to accept it and affirm these people because they're human beings.
Yeah. I mean, it's yeah, like you said, it seems to be just who we are, or at least what a larger percentage of the population is or is becoming, as more, people are born. And yeah, I feel it's, again,
Eventually,
going back to like, because like with evolutions, like really all it takes for a trait to thrive is for it not to prevent you from surviving long enough to reproduce and, successfully reproduce. So,
yeah. Yep.
so, being autistic may have its other disadvantages. We can still fuck.
Some of us just don't want to.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
like the asexual community might be exclusively autistic. That's that's there's a huge correlation there.
I can think of one or two examples that I know. Yeah.
or people who are likely autistic who seem to be asexual.
Yeah. That's So, yeah.
We went off the topic at the end.
Well, but the topic was really just essentially like, what do we think of life now? So, I mean, there's really nothing off topic from that.
That's a good point.
So, you're welcome. I just saved the show right there. So we're coming up on 2 hours now, so probably a good time to wrap up and whatever this is.
That's Tommy's hips don't lie, I think.
If I had hips, I only lie about having them.
Tommy's built like a carrot.
Without the leaves. Yeah. But I'm a baby.
Carrots usually have a nub too.
Oh yeah, I got my little. I'm a baby carrot. Just dip me in some hummus or ranch. Yeah.
Have you ever had sweet hummus, like a sweet like a honey hummus?
No.
That was at my uncle's kind of like awkward replacement for a funeral / wedding reception.
Funeral substitute, is that a thing?
Yeah, because I think they cooked them in an oven somewhere, and then they didn't want to all be sad or visibly have feelings, so they had a party, called it a celebration of life, and had lots of good food.
Yeah, well, at least there's that. Yeah, but no, I haven't had that. My current one of my current like hyperfixations is roasted red pepper hummus.
Oh, that's super good. Yeah.
Yeah, but I found like actually like at Kroger, our local regional whatever, like
it's
Kroger,
huge corporation.
Yeah,
but
I found like their like the store brand hummus I actually find I like a lot better than like some of the actual like name brand or whatever ones. It's particularly the roasted red pepper. Like is like the Sabra, their roasted red pepper kind of sucks. But the private selection one's like really good. It's actually got a little bit of a kick to it.
Yeah, Sabra is weak sauce.
Yeah. No, I like the roasted garlic. That one's good. But
Aldi's has some good hummus. They also have dessert hummus. They have vanilla hummus and chocolate hummus.
Yeah, maybe one of these days. Yeah, maybe that needs to become part of my new life philosophy.
What, Aldi's?
Well, that too. No, just more like dessert hummus types things. But yeah. So, all right.
Now we're talking about hummus. We should probably stop talking.
Yeah, we're going to totally bore no one who's watching at the moment. But if you're watching later, please let us know what you think of dessert hummus and how that works into your life philosophy or something.
Yeah, and a chyron for the bottom of the screen is forthcoming. I wanted to do it, but not as much as I didn't want to do it.
Yeah, same with me trying to put together like an intro music, like title screen thing. Yeah, this week it's enough that like I actually remembered or realized I could like set up an actual microphone. So,
yay!
That's what you get this time. But yeah, so I don't know, any parting words or parting thoughts from you, Matt?
This was a good time.
Mm-hmm. It was, as per usual. We should do it again sometime.
Yes.
Like maybe next week at the same time, at the same place.
Yeah, this was a journey for me because I started out this podcast definitely more under the influence of a smoky thing named Blueberry. And so like this was just a developing situation for me the whole time.
Well, thanks for bringing us along. We enjoyed it.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, next week, sure tune in again. figure out between now and then what we're talking about. May have a guest, may not. We don't know. We'll see. But speaking of guests, I actually found out in the middle of the show, I am going to be joining new friend of mine, at least met online. Seems like a cool guy. This guy's name's Bishop B. Jamel Broadnax. He does a stream on Friday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, so same time as ours, just Friday. I don't think I've ever actually like talked with him, but I've like watched his shows, or he was on my other friend Jimmy Liggins' show, Unreligious, a few months ago. I was watching that and like commenting, interacting with them. Seemed like a really cool dude. So I don't know how he would describe himself. Like he's not Christian, he's not atheist. He's still considering himself like spiritual, but still definitely like very critical of like Christianity and religion. So that should be a fun conversation. So I'll either in like the comments here or just like on our Facebook page, I'll probably leave a link, like kind of reminding people that like with the link to his page. So yeah, this Friday at 8, sounds like I'm going to be talking with Jamel, and that should be a good time. So come hang out. Yeah, should be a good time. Like I said, hopefully having another guest on our show, hopefully soon. We're kind of talking with a few people. And again, like if you're, like I said, our guests aren't necessarily anyone like famous or anything like that. It's just people we like and people we like talking to. So if you would like to talk with us, just kind of hang out with us on the show. Like I said, it's really more like not even so much a guest, as more just like a third co-host. So if you'd like to just join in on the conversation, let us know. We'd love to have more people on. But yeah, leave some comments. Let us know. Yeah, watching would be good too. We'll start there, but or maybe even leaving some comments. Interacting with us that way. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So yeah, until next time. What's our sign off thing? We should actually probably like talk about this more like beforehand.
May your things with the stuff. May your things with the stuff be forever with your people.
Forever and ever, amen. I like it. All right. Good night, everyone.